What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I've got a review of the OPPO Find X2 Pro phone in what I believe is like a very underrated flagship caliber phone. With the Samsung Galaxy S20 that has gotten a lot of attention lately, I feel like this is like one of the first devices that can really compete with it in many categories, and in some areas is actually even better. This video is sponsored by OPPO, but all the opinions of this device after a few weeks are my own. So I've had this phone for a few weeks now, and having quite a bit of experience of testing out OPPO products in the past, I feel like what they've done with this device is they've put in all the best that they had in one phone. They didn't do anything that was like overly different or fancy. They didn't try any weird mechanisms or anything, but instead they made a powerhouse of a phone that is great in terms of the specs in 2020. They've got the camera set up on the back, great build quality, and a beautiful display. It is also 5G compatible and has NFC, and they've also kept the models very simple with a 12 gig of RAM model with 512 gigs of storage standard on the Pro. That is UFS 3.0 storage, and it also has a Snapdragon 865 processor to power it, so in terms of specs, this is about as good as it gets. So I think the first thing that is really worth talking about is the display, and this is a 6.7 inch 3168 by 1440 QHD Plus AMOLED screen, and it is beautiful. You are also able to use it in 120 Hz at the full QHD Plus resolution, which is something that most phones that have had the 120 Hz option have not been able to do. Obviously, power has also been a big talk, and the way to conserve that is to run it in an adaptive mode to run the apps at 60 Hz, but with like the main menus as well as the Google apps at 120 Hz. The phone also has a peak brightness of 1200 nits, and I actually found that in some cases it looks brighter than the Samsung Galaxy S20. The screen also has over 1 billion colors, and you also have the option to use it in both like an adaptive and a vibrant mode, and in my opinion, I believe the colors have a good medium of being both vibrant and also natural at the same time. Personally, I'm not a big fan of having a wide curve on a screen, and in my opinion, I feel like this is right around the middle. It is definitely not the smallest edge, but it also isn't as large as what we saw on like the OnePlus 7 Pro. When it comes to games, you also have a 240 Hz touch sampling rate, and with all the specs given at its top end, the gaming experience was excellent. I just feel like having a sharp display that is able to run at 120 Hz at its max resolution was just such a good experience, and something that I hope every single phone this year has. It also has stereo Dolby Atmos speakers, and this is all kind of like tying together the whole experience of great multimedia when it comes to watching movies or games. When it comes to the overall build quality though, I feel like OPPO has played it very simple. They haven't done anything that is overly crazy or striking to the design. It looks like a very normal phone, and I mean, that's fine for the most part. If you want to use like a case with it, I personally don't really care about what the phone looks like as long as it works well. But the one I have here is ceramic, and that is a very durable material that actually adds more weight to the device at 17 grams heavier than the leather model that they also offer. From what I've seen, the leather model looks great, but overall the attention to detail in the design is awesome. And when you put it under a 100mm lens like right here, you can see like kind of the circular ridges of the ceramic finish. There's also a Lamborghini edition that is coming soon that is based on the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, and I really want to check that one out. It looks absolutely incredible. So when it came to the software experience, this is based on Android 10, but it also has ColorOS 7.1, and that is their newest edition. And I feel like over the years, and even in just the past year or two, ColorOS has improved significantly, and they've done that once again. They've kept it very simple, but at the same time, it doesn't feel too much like stock Android. And you can see right here, everything is very responsive, it's customizable, and some of the features that they've also added take advantage of the hardware experience, including HDR support in the YouTube, as well as being able to pin apps specifically over to the RAM, because with 12 gigs of RAM, a lot of times it is just not being used. So if you use an app a lot like Instagram, Twitter, or like perhaps a game, and you don't want to have to like completely start it up every single time, you can go ahead and just pin it to your RAM very easily, and it will keep it ready to go at all times. It is in general more of like a simplified and optimized approach, but at the same time you do still have a lot of stock apps, which personally I didn't use, but in terms of the software in general and how it was able to operate, I was really happy with the experience. So now moving on to the camera, I feel like this is one of the biggest things of this smartphone. And last year, like I mentioned, we did do a lot of videos of the OPPO phones and the cameras in very beautiful destinations, including Switzerland, Italy, and Japan. And in all those cases, I feel like the biggest thing was that the periscope zoom worked very well, and the night mode was also excellent. Even though I feel like people talk way too much about the camera bump on phones, one small thing that I don't really like is the fact that the camera bump is pretty significant, but the fact that when you lay it out on like a flat surface, unless you are using like a case, it does kind of wobble around like this. That is just something that I noticed. So the camera sensor itself is a triple setup, and it includes a 48 megapixel main camera that is a Sony IMX sensor that is also a larger one this year, and the ultra wide angle camera is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX 589, and the periscope camera is 13 megapixels that is 5x optical. Two of the sensors have stabilization, and it also has the ability to capture in 12-bit true capture. So the 48 megapixel sensor itself is like a good medium between having very high megapixels and also having great low light performance with a larger sensor size. Looking at the samples right here, the white balance as well as the exposure was relatively consistent throughout the board. The colors are vibrant, and when it came to the ultra wide camera, it also did a pretty decent job as well. And another improvement is that it actually uses every single pixel to autofocus, so that is also an area that has seen a lot of improvement in terms of speed. The periscope camera also did a pretty good job, and for the most part I find myself using it at around 5x to 10x and not as much in the 60x at all. When it came to nighttime performance, the camera did a great job with its dual ISO and also large sensor size, and as you can see from the samples here, it can pretty much see in the dark. That is something that OPPO has been working on along all their phones for the past few years. Some of the flaws in the camera though is the fact that between each camera I found that like the white balance and stuff just wasn't as consistent. It seemed like each camera had its own settings, and also the video performance is still not the best. But you can record in 4K 30, and I don't really feel like there's a need for 8K on every single device right now. I think another very impressive feature that is up there with the display though is the battery, and the fact that you're able to charge it from 0 to 100 in 38 minutes. This is all thanks to the latest SuperVOOC 2.0 technology. And that is something that I feel like is pretty impressive for a phone that has a battery size of over 4,000 milliamp hours. You can also get 40% of charge in just 10 minutes, but one thing that is still missing is wireless charging. With a battery size of 4,260 milliamp hours, that is actually split up into two 2,130 milliamp hour batteries in order to give it the super fast charging by being able to charge both cells at its max speed. As for battery performance, I would say you should be able to get through an entire day, but nothing much more than that. Especially if you use it at 120 Hz at all times, you do want to be careful of the battery life because I feel like the adaptive mode just makes much more sense right now, considering the battery is large but nothing crazy in terms of size, especially for a phone with this much power. So when it comes to like power and battery, I feel like that is an area that has a lot of good things going for it, but I do wish the size itself was a little bit larger, and I feel like if it had maybe like a 5,000 milliamp hour battery or even like a 4,800 milliamp hour battery, that would be able to allow you to comfortably use it at its full resolution and also full refresh rate for the entire day. With such fast charging, the lack of wireless charging in some areas does make sense, but it's still something that is nice to have because I usually have one at my desk, and when I'm not using my phone or if it's on standby, I usually just like prop it up and have it charging anyways. But otherwise, that is pretty much my review of the OPPO Find X2 Pro, and I feel like once again they've done a very good job overall when it comes to just putting all the best technology that is currently available into one smartphone, but not doing anything that is kind of pushing it in terms of something a little bit weird, experimental. It is simply their best phone that they have to offer right now as a company. The display is amazing, the camera is solid, the build quality is great, and in general, I feel like it's a pretty refined experience, and that all paired up with like ColorOS 7.0 has also seen some good progressive improvements as well over the past year. As always though, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.